Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. I trust everybody had a great Memorial Day weekend. I'm actually recording this the Friday before Memorial Day weekend because I want to have a great Memorial Day weekend too. I don't want to spend Memorial Day Monday creating a video and editing a video, so I'm doing it early. I hope the world hasn't gone crazy in the extra day since, during Memorial Day, because if it has, then I won't be recording the video until this day when you're seeing it, Tuesday, and then you won't even know till Wednesday if you get all your news from my vlog, which I hope you don't. You should listen to a lot of news sources. Anyways, what we're talking about today, and speaking of news sources, that's what we're going to talk about today, the news media. I've mentioned several times in the past a very open secret that we have a biased media in this country. We have a biased media, so biased that it really is fair to call them or to consider them the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. It's obvious from the way they cover Joe Biden compared to the way they had covered Donald Trump when he was president. That's what we're going to talk about today. The subject or the trigger for this discussion is ice cream. But before I get to the specific discussion, I just want to, this is my first product endorsement. I've never done a product endorsement, and this is not a paid promotion. This is my honest opinion. This stuff, it's actually technically not ice cream, it's gelato. Talenti gelato. It's very expensive. Let's set this down. It's very expensive. It's something like, I've seen it as much as $7 for that little pint that I showed you. But I get it at Kroger's occasionally where they have it on sale for about $3.50. Well worth it. These really great flavors, and they have something called a triple something or other. I don't remember exactly. Triple layer, I think it is. But it has 3 different things, layers of different stuff. It's all good. So that's my recommendation, Talenti. And you can actually write to Talenti and tell them that I sent you. Maybe they'll send me some money, but I don't expect it. That's not why I'm doing this product recommendation. Now on to the subject. You may have seen on the news that Joe Biden had an ice cream cone. All the things that are going on in the world, that seems to be the big news. Joe Biden had an ice cream cone. More than that, our objective fair press wanted to know the flavor, and they wanted to use it as an occasion to boost Joe Biden. I'm just going to show you the video. Watch the video and tell me where I'm wrong.
Mr. President, what did you order?
Chocolate chip.
Oh, yeah. Mr. President, what is your message to Republicans who are prepared to block the January 6th commission?
Eat some chocolate chip.
Yeah, eat some ice cream. Do you see compromise and common ground on that?
On a commission? I think I can't imagine anyone voting against the establishment of a commission on the greatest assault since the Civil War on the Capitol.
Did I call it or did I call it? I called it. The press had an opportunity to catch Joe Biden in an informal setting to ask him any number of penetrating questions. What did they ask him? They asked him 2 things. They asked him, first of all, what flavor ice cream did you get? That's so important, right? That is so important to know what flavor of ice cream Joe Biden got. It's so important that I actually forgot whether it was chocolate chip or chocolate chip. But you have the video. Replay it if this is vital news to you, which it probably is to our liberal friends. That's what they really want to know, because these were obviously liberal reporters, and that's what they wanted to know of 2 things. The second thing was whether Joe Biden thought the Republicans would vote for the establishment of a commission to study the events of January 6th at the Capitol. I'm actually going to cover this in detail in my next video, unless something really earth-shattering makes me set it aside. But you just heard the way they asked the question. They were setting it up, they were teeing it up for Joe Biden to bash the Republicans, to not to say whether he thought they would sign it, but to try to embarrass the Republicans into signing it. And finally, on the subject of ice cream, remember when Trump very early in his presidency had some kind of dinner and everybody got 1 scoop of ice cream, but Donald Trump got 2 scoops of ice cream? Remember how that was, tantamount to a major scandal for the press. They really obsessed about that. Compare that to Joe Biden. President Biden, what kind of ice cream did you have? Oh, so wonderful. Mr. Trump had 2 scoops of ice cream. Evil, evil, evil man, 2 scoops of ice cream. But the main question to me, and I would think to all of you, is why are they talking about ice cream? This is the President of the United States, for Pete's sake. And they want to talk about ice cream? What kind of, I could see it as a human interest question asked in passing, but to make it a primary subject, to have, especially, Trump was very accessible to the press, to his great credit. Joe Biden, you never get to, or you very rarely get to ask him a question, and almost never get to ask him a question in an impromptu situation where he doesn't get to pick which reporters are called on, and he never gets a challenging question. Here is this opportunity. You catch him getting ice cream, and that's it. That's the subject, ice cream. And they never broach the subject that is of most interest to me personally, and I think would be very important to the country. Your son's laptop had a number of emails on them. One of those emails talks about a deal with a Chinese company, which, as I mentioned, they are connected to the Chinese government, to the Chinese Communist Party. There's a mention of 10% to the big guy, and I'm going to talk about this more in a future vlog. But Mr. President, this payment of 10% to the big guy, are you the big guy? Simple yes or no question. Take a few seconds to ask, even fewer seconds, maybe not even 1 second to answer yes or no. And they never ask him that. Mr. President, are you the big guy? Just another example of their bias and how they protect this president. And I hope we'll find out in 2024 how they attack President Trump, the next president. I hope. But for now, you have to go into the past and compare the treatment of Donald Trump to the treatment of Joe Biden. That's our press. And what I want to really talk about is the bias, I have one more item I just want to cover just to show how biased the press is, how they work overtime to bury the news. And then I want to talk about the main point of today's vlog, which is the very serious implications of what the press is doing and not doing, something that nobody has really mentioned. I think I'm the first one, which is why you should always watch my vlogs. But here's this headline from it says the U.S. Sun, but they're a British paper. My point being, if you want to know what's going on in this country, you really have to read the British press, because you're not going to get it from our own press. I am sorry to have to say that, but that is the fact. You could also read other countries too if you can find English translations, or there's the Australian press. But mainly you have to read the British press to get stories that our media are burying. Again, I'm sad to say this, but here's an example from this headline. Quote, "Dad will be there," unquote. Joe Biden did meet Hunter's shady business partners when he was vice president, as emails show private dinner plans in D.C. There was this whole Well, it should have been a controversy. Again, it wasn't because the press refused to cover it. They tried to bury it, but all these shady business dealings between Hunter Biden and the various Chinese companies, all of whom are linked to the Chinese Communist Party, because under the laws of China, all of these companies, they're required to cooperate and share information with the Chinese Communist Party. So when you say you're doing business with a Chinese company, you're really for all practical purposes, you're also doing business with the Chinese Communist Party. I'm going to cover this in more detail in a future video. The point is that there was, well, remember Hunter's laptop, how that story got buried. Twitter took, the New York Post just shut down their Twitter account for 2 weeks for reporting a perfectly true story. But what's more important, even then, well, this is important too. If we got a crook in the White House, don't we have a right to know? They certainly weren't hesitating to let us know about Richard Nixon. But Joe Biden or any Democrat, it's different. It's different when Democrats do it. That's basically the philosophy of our liberal friends and our liberal friends in the media, which for all practical purposes, with rare exceptions, are the media. But the implications of not covering this story and other stories such as inflation, rising inflation, the crisis at the border, what is China doing? They're trying to replace us as a preeminent superpower for the whole world. They're doing all kinds of things that are not being reported. I'll just name one story. The Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, he has been trying to talk to his counterpart in China. They're simply not taking his calls. We have a very weak president, so weak that could you imagine China not taking Trump's calls? Or if they didn't take his calls, would you then imagine Trump taking China's calls? I don't think so. But Joe Biden, and then there's Iran, there's fentanyl. I just mentioned, I think, our open borders under Biden and the unlawful aliens pouring into the country. But there's also another issue. These unlawful aliens, they are being brought into the country by the drug cartels in Mexico, and they're using these unlawful aliens as a way to facilitate their drug smuggling. The idea is that you send a whole bunch of unlawful aliens over the border. The Border Patrol has to drop their patrol against drug smugglers and deal with these unlawful aliens, so they're distracted, and then in another part of the border, the drugs come in. And we're seeing a great increase in fentanyl overdoses and fentanyl deaths because of Joe Biden's policy, and the press is not covering it. And this is the main point, the main damage that the press is doing by burying these stories. What they're doing is they are working as hard as they can to suppress these stories so that we don't know about them at an early point when we could more effectively deal with them. They just don't report them. They let these problems metastasize until they get so big that the public notices that the problems could not be hidden anymore. I'll just project one potential problem for the future: Joe Biden's dementia. There could come a point where his dementia is so obvious, where he is struggling so much that just to be coherent, that the press can no longer bury it. What do we do then? this is what I'm talking about. These problems, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Right now we have inflation running higher than normal. Well, it bothers me that we have a normal of 2%. When I was younger, no inflation was acceptable unless there was some kind of crisis or a war or something. Then there would be temporary inflation, but then budgets and inflation and the currency would be brought back into sync, back to normal. But that's not the case anymore. I told you all in an earlier vlog that I lived through the 70s. I remember what double-digit inflation was like, how bad it was. Are we going to have double-digit inflation again before the public is going to demand that something be done about it? Because that's going to be the point at which the problem is so bad that the press can no longer bury it and people will not notice it. I notice it all the time now when I go, and I'm sure you do, when you go to the supermarket, things are suddenly costing more. I think I told you that I went to the Starbucks at the Barnes & Noble Cafe. They serve Starbucks coffee. The price of coffee was up 7%. My buy one cookie, get one cookie free was now buy one cookie, get another cookie 50% off. But we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing this inflation everywhere. Gas was under $2 where I am in Tennessee. If you're in California, eat your heart out. But it was $2, and now it's, I think the last time I saw it was $2.76, $2.76. Again, eat your heart out, California, but that is a lot more than I was paying before, and it's poor people who get hit hardest. If you're poor, it doesn't matter, you have to drive if you live out here. There are buses, but it's not like a subway system or an extensive bus system such as in New York, where I lived for many, many years. They have, well, I'm not going to talk about the transportation system in New York. That's a subject for another day. What I am going to talk about is out here, and I remember back in Detroit, it was very rudimentary. You'd have to walk quite a distance to catch a bus. They wouldn't come that often. It's much harder. So no matter how poor you are, just about, you have to have a car just to go anywhere, and you're really hit then by these gas prices. If they go up, I don't know, what is that, 20%, 30%? I'm not going to do the math right now, but the increase from, I don't know, $1.90 to $2.79, that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. And I'll just end on my main point that I was, just to reemphasize it, that the press really does a disservice by hiding this information, by letting problems get worse and worse and worse until they get so bad that, number one, we finally have to notice them and the problems can't be buried anymore. And number two, the problems by that time are much harder to deal with. In fact, I'll throw one more thing in, because we're talking also about bias against Republicans. I'm thinking about a certain Republican president. They called him a racist. The press branded him as a racist when he shut down travel from China in January, the end of January. Imagine if he had done that the end of December or the end of November. What would they have said? But how much better would we have been in the United States? Maybe we wouldn't have had all these. It's a pretty safe bet that we would not have had all these shutdowns. But they had to call him a racist. He said that, well, now in Facebook, you're now allowed to say that, or to claim, or to accuse China of creating coronavirus in a biolab in Wuhan, China, not some accident from a wet market. Now you're allowed to say that. But Trump said that a year ago. He said that a year ago, and he was called an Asian hater, I guess, something. The point is that had they not only reported the news fairly and accurately, but supported the president, not attacked him, we could have shut down the travel from China at a very early stage and saved, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of lives. So that's another instance where the press failed us, the public, and in this case, people died because of that. And I'll just mention again, because of fentanyl coming over the borders, because the press doesn't want to report that either. And the terrorists that are coming in over the border, this open border. I could go on and on and on about how we are being badly damaged by our biased press, but you could mitigate at least a tiny bit of the damage to me if you give me a thumbs up. If you like this video, share it with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? Comment section below the video, or you can also put questions, suggestions for future topics. You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. You could visit my other channels, my hot dog recipe channel, my music channel, links in the description. But did I say subscribe? You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. But most of all, I really do appreciate the time that you spend with me. I hope you come back and spend some more time with me, because that lets me spend more time with you. I just look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.